Takuma Sakamoto, a secluded gamer, is transported into the world of his favorite game. Cross-reverie with the appearance and powers of his own character in the game, the demon Lord Diablo, where the Pantherian Rem Galu and the elf Shara L. Greenwood accidentally fall into an enchantment that bound them to him as his slaves. The trio settle in an inn in Fortress City, where they meet Celestine Baudelaire, the head of the Mage Association. The slave collars around Rem and Shara's necks cannot be removed or destroyed, so Celestine promises to find out how to do so. Suspecting Rem is keeping secrets, Diablo forces her to confess in private that the demon Lord Krebskulm was sealed inside her body ever since she was born. Celestine is the only one who knows, and they have been working on a way to extract and slay Krebskulm without killing her. Diablo vows to help her with her problem. Later, when Diablo takes a walk, the disgruntled mage Galluck attacks him with a giant, fire-breathing salamander, only to be shocked when Diablo easily slays it. He declares he is Diablo, the demon lord from another world. Diablo, Rem, and Shara join the Adventurers Guild, but when they try to measure Diablo's level, the power-measuring device malfunctions. The guild master, Sylvie, is intrigued, then sends them on a quest to slay a Madara snake in the man-eating woods. Once there, they are ambushed by a squad of elves who reveal that Shara is the princess of Greenwood and wish for her to return home, and have been told that Diablo enslaved her. Shara refuses to return because her brother had been pressuring her to marry him and bear his child. The elves attack Diablo, who easily defeats them. Galluck, the one who told the elves where to find them and desires revenge against Diablo, comes out of hiding and berates the elves for their failure, then retreats after being reprimanded by Remington. Shara tells the elves to return and tell her brother she is never coming home. Diablo and Shara are given a quest to deliver refreshments to the guards at the Bridge of Ulick. Emil Bitchelberger, who thinks Shara and Rem are unwilling slaves, attacks Diablo and is quickly defeated. Then the girls explain the situation to him, so he leaves. As Diablo and Shara make the delivery, the guards report a massive army of Fallen is approaching. Aware the guards will not survive without help, Diablo volunteers to defend the bridge. Back in the city, Celestine tells Rem that she fired Galluck for his actions, then states her suspicions that Diablo is actually a Fallen. Galluck bursts in and hysterically demands to hear that he wasn't fired. He suddenly stabs himself with a cursed dagger, causing his body to be possessed and transform into the Fallen Gregor. Diablo defeats the Fallen left and right. Then their commander, Edelgard, appears and challenges him to a duel. Gregor pursues Celestine and Rem, aiming to kill Celestine to destroy the protective barrier she placed around the city. When they are cornered, Emil and several adventurers defend them. Edelgard is unable to significantly harm Diablo. When a messenger explains the situation with Gregor, Diablo fires a massive spell called White Nova that erases the Fallen army and most of the land. But to Diablo's amazement, Edelgard is only left naked and is mostly unharmed, and she acknowledges him as a demon lord. Diablo teleports himself and Shara back in time to save Emil from death. Vengeful for all the people Gregor hurt and killed, Diablo humiliates him with his magic until he begs for mercy, then kills him. After funerals are held for the people killed in Gregor's attack, Shara attempts to seduce an exhausted Diablo, only to be attacked by a jealous Remington. Sylvie delivers a message saying Shara must be returned to Greenwood within 10 days or else there will be war. Diablo is angered when he learns Shara's brother put a bounty on her. The group meets Chester Ray Galford, the lord of the city, who asks them to do their best to prevent a war since Shara refuses to return to Greenwood. Chester assigns Alicia Christella, an Imperial Knight, to assist them. Diablo purchases a scythe so he can fight weaker opponents without using magic. Shara is abducted by bounty hunters, but is rescued by the group plus Emil. Alicia berates herself for not guarding Shara better, but Diablo tells her not to be so hard on herself. Celestine directs the group to the slave trader, Medeos, who was once Celestine's colleague in studying magic, for insight on how to remove Rem and Shara's collars. When they meet Medeos, she detects Krebskulm's presence within Rem, but Shara thinks she is saying Rem is pregnant. Medeos explains a master can remove a collar by pouring their magical energy into their slave's body. Diablo tries it with Shera, but gives up in embarrassment when the process is extremely pleasurable for her. Later, Shera's brother, Kira, arrives and apologizes for the bounty hunters, then tries to persuade Shera to return with him. She reiterates that she will not return, so he leaves, promising that she will return with him of her own free will. Diablo dreams of his childhood where many of his so-called friends would use him and then abandon him. While alone with Shera, he finds he can easily craft potions. Outside, Kira plays a flute that hypnotizes Shera into leaving with him. Depressed about being abandoned again, Diablo mopes, but Rem and Alicia eventually deduce that Shera was hypnotized and the group plots a rescue. Kira chains Shera up in his tent and interrogates her on her relationship with Diablo, not believing her when she says Diablo did not touch her. Kira unleashes a fabric-eating slime creature to destroy her clothes and prepares to rape her, but the group arrives in time, having already defeated his guards. Kira uses the flute to hypnotize Shera again and make her lie that she wants to stay with him. But Diablo uses his authority as the master of her collar to make her tell the truth, and she says she wants to stay with Diablo, and Remington infuriated. Kira summons a monster called the Force Hydra. Diablo defeats the Force Hydra despite its regeneration by completely incinerating it. Shera asks him to spare Kira as he is still her brother, and he agrees, but Chester appears and beheads Kira. Chester has his army round up the already beaten elf troops and attempts to capture Shera, stating his plans to conquer Greenwood. Chester traps Diablo in an energy sphere and destroys Alicia's sword when she tries to defend Shera. Diablo breaks free and battles Chester, evenly matched and narrowly wins. Alicia threatens to report Chester's unethical actions to the king, so he surrenders and withdraws his troops. The group heals the elf troops with potions and comforts Shera over the loss of her brother. Later, Sylvie serves an exhausted Diablo a drink meant to restore energy, but he becomes drunk and mistakes her for a body pillow. He grabs and caresses her, much to her embarrassment. While Alicia has an audience with the king, she runs into Sadler, an arrogant paladin, who is going to Faltra City to investigate Diablo. Shera summons a bird called a turkey shot and binds it to her with a collar. Diablo teaches her how to take advantage of the turkey shot's ability to share what it sees with its owner to improve her aim with arrows. While Shera and Rem bathe in a river, Edelgard appears, saying she is not here to fight, but to confirm Rem holds Krebskulm within her. They explain Rem's situation to Shera, and Shera promises to help her. Edelgard explains a ritual to be done in 3 days at Starfall Tower can remove Krebskulm without harming Rem, then leaves after they agree. 3 days later, Alicia returns and warns them about Sadler. Despite their attempts to avoid him, he and his followers find them. Sadler condemns Diablo's friends for consorting with a demon lord and injures Rem with magic. He then tries to turn Diablo to stone, but Diablo reflects the spell and Sadler is turned to stone. The group goes to Starfall Tower. Edelgard explains Diablo must pour his magical energy into Rem through her vagina to release Krebskulm. Despite his embarrassment, he does it, and what emerges is at first a towering, hideous demon, but then it transforms into a cute little girl. Krebskulm has amnesia, and when Shera feeds her biscuits, she is enamored with the taste and decides not to wipe out the mortals. Alicia protests, but Edelgard is loyal to Krebskulm and accepts it. Disappointed in Krebskulm's weaker form and refusal to kill, the fallen Ullerex appears and attacks her, but Edelgard and Diablo drive him away. As they approach Faltra City, Edelgard leaves since Fallen are not welcome. They change Krebskulm's name to Clem to avoid a panic. An exhausted Diablo is embarrassed when Shera and Clem strip and rub against him to donate magical energy. In private, Alicia remembers how she suffered from abusive parents and superiors and wants Krebskulm to wipe out all the mortal races. Meanwhile, Sadler turns back to flesh and vows revenge. The group tells Celestine about Clem, and she is happy that the demon lord is not evil. While separated from Shera and Diablo, Alicia betrays Rem and Clem to Sadler, and they are arrested. Alicia's plan is to traumatize Clem until she returns to her true self. Sadler takes them to a church where he intends to torture Rem until she confesses to worshiping a demon lord. Diablo and Shara search for them, while a massive army of fallen marches toward Faltra City. Clem tries to protect Rem, but when Sadler attempts to strike her, Rem shields her with her body and is impaled several times. Clem snaps and returns to her original demon form. Sadler tries to take her down, but is overwhelmed by her true power and is killed by Clem soon after, who then blows up the church. As she rampages, Diablo and Shara arrive. Diablo gives the potions to Shara to heal Rem, while he proceeds to fight Clem's original demon form. Alicia joins the army of Fallen, and she, Edelgard, and Ulrichs celebrate the return of the true Krebskolm. As Shara treats Rem's injuries with potions, Diablo battles Krebskolm and greatly damages her, but cannot keep her down. After Emil protects the girls from debris, Rem reveals she is all right, causing Krebskolm to revert to the little girl Clem. Due to the failure of her plans, the army of Fallen turns on Alicia, but Edelgard holds them off and tells her to flee. Sylvie attempts to kill Clem for the destruction she caused, but relents when Diablo casts the spell to bind Clem to him as a slave and make a collar appear around her neck, as a slave cannot disobey their master. Later, Alicia appears and reveals she sneaked Edelgard, heavily injured from fighting off the other Fallen, into the city and begs Clem to heal her, which she does. Clem orders Edelgard to never kill mortals again. Rem asks Alicia why she did what she did, and she reveals her past suffering and desire to wipe out the mortal races. Since Clem will not kill, Alicia attempts suicide, but Diablo stops her and tells her to find a new purpose to live for. Then Rem forgives her. Diablo collapses in exhaustion and is embarrassed when all 5 girls strip and rub against him to donate magical energy. The next day, Edelgard disguises herself as a human and mingles with the people. Alicia leaves for a new journey. Shara and Rem ask Diablo choose one of them to kiss, but he refuses, as he is a demon lord and only does what he wants. Diablo inadvertently rescues the priestess Lumikina Wesselia from assassination by the paladin Gewalt, easily defeating Gewalt and leaving him frozen in ice. As Lumikina had been praying when Diablo appeared, she now believes Diablo is God, which disturbs him. Lumikina explains to Rem and Shara that only God and her future husband are allowed to see her naked. And since Diablo did unintentionally see her underwear, either he must be God or she must marry him. Backed into a corner, Diablo instead insists his identity is a secret, allowing Lumikina to continue believing he is God and appeasing Rem and Shara's jealousy. Lumikina believes the head cardinal of her church wants her dead for investigating his corruption, so she had been looking for head paladin Batuta for his assistance. Diablo agrees to escort her to Zircon Tower City, as he remembers that the dungeon he built in Cross Reverie is located there. Lumikina also meets Clem and Edelgard, and they instinctively do not get along. So Diablo decides to leave Clem and Edelgard behind, though Clem does upgrade Shara's bow to a demonic ebony bow before they leave, to keep Shara safe. When the group arrives in Zircon Tower City, a child named Horn who had explored the first 3 floors of a newly discovered dungeon offers to be a guide. The description confirms it is Diablo's dungeon, implying it was summoned along with him. A woman begs a priest of the Paladin Brigade to heal her child of a deadly disease called Death Knell, but is denied because she lacks money. Diablo defeats the priest when he gets violent, and Lumikina heals the child. A monstrous sand whale attacks the city, and Diablo tries to fight it, but requires the help of Batuta and the city's leader, Fanus Laminitus, to drive it away. Batuta apologizes for his subordinates' behavior, but Fanus heavily taxed the church, making them desperate for funds. Fanus says God is not real and the church are just swindlers. She tries to shoot Lumikina, and when Batuta blocks it, she says that since God did not stop her, that proves he is not real, then leaves. Lumikina is appalled that many people have Death Knell and are denied healing due to lacking money, but Batuta says they must be pragmatic. Batuta takes the group to his mansion and serves them food. While Diablo and Shera bathe, Batuta and his maid meet Rem and Lumikina for a discussion. Just as Lumikina deduces that Death Knell is actually a curse, not a disease, she and Rem are drugged and abducted by Batuta and his maid, Shirlu. Horn spied on them and warns Diablo and Shera. Lumikina and Rem wake up tied to crosses in an underground altar where an orgy takes place to extract the evil essence this releases to produce Death Knell. Batuta reveals that he has experienced no tragedy and has no excuse for his actions other than he enjoys being evil. His plan is to corrupt Lumikina with lust so he can make a Death Knell powerful enough to assassinate Phanis. Diablo, Shera, and Horn arrive before Shirlu can sexually torment her. Diablo and Batuta battle with Diablo at a disadvantage because using his power risks triggering a cave-in. Diablo is impaled but survives and takes off Batuta's arm. Shirlu threatens Rem, but Shera shoots her with an arrow that turns her to stone, while Horn unties the girls. Batuta declares they have already lost and makes a final attack that Diablo counters and Batuta is apparently killed, but this triggers a cave-in. They escape, but discover Lumikina has Death Knell. As she cannot heal herself, Diablo says they must enter the dungeon, as he had stored an item that can heal. Meanwhile, the fallen Veracnus attacks Phanis in her bath and warns her that his army will attack Zircon Tower City soon, and then he will force her to join his harem before leaving. The group is intercepted by Phanis' fleet, as she believes Diablo is working with Veracnus. They explain their plan to retrieve an item from the dungeon that can cure everyone of Death Knell, but she doesn't believe them and orders them arrested. They escape when Diablo triggers an earthquake. Gewalt arrives and offers Phanis his services, learning of the dungeon. 4 days later, the group arrives at the dungeon deep in the desert, but Lumikina does not have long before the Death Knell will kill her. Diablo conceals the fact that he built the dungeon. After defeating the Guardian at the entrance, they encounter a labyrinth. Horn had prepared a map, but it is useless because the walls shift over time, so Diablo simply blasts through the walls. After battling monsters, they're suspended in a basket over a river of lava and must answer trivia questions to pass, which they achieve. To pass another level, they must entertain an army of ape-like white Jaegers with a song and dance routine. On another level, they must move along a narrow ledge above a raging river. Gewalt ambushes them and nearly kills Lumikina, but Horn tackles him and they both fall in the river. Diablo tells the others to keep moving and jumps into the river to save Horn. Diablo loses his staff to the river, but saves an unconscious Horn and sacrifices his shirt and cape to make a fire. He removes Horn's wet clothes and is embarrassed to learn Horn is a girl. He thought she was a boy due to her masculine clothing. She wakes up and explains she is an orphan who dressed as a boy to gain respect. While waiting for her clothes to dry, she says he reminds her of her father. Rem, Shera, and Lumikina get through several floors, but are attacked by Gewalt again. A massive black dragon appears and attacks them all. Gewalt summons the fire spirit, Ifrit, but the dragon destroys it and critically injures him. Lumikina heals him despite him being an enemy, but he remains unconscious. Diablo and Horn arrive, though weakened without his staff. Diablo injures the dragon, who attempts to escape, but the maid Golem Rose appears and kills the dragon for cowardice. Diablo recognizes Rose as his faithful NPC ally, while she recognizes him as her master and lets them into the treasure room. They go to a white ox statue that heals Lumikina of Death Knell when she touches it. Diablo gets new clothes and a staff while Rem and Horn reluctantly change into revealing outfits that Diablo explains will strengthen and protect them. Shera puts on a ring she finds. Rose is jealous of the other females in Diablo's life, but is placated when Diablo gives her a hair brooch. They prepare to take the white ox statue back to the surface, but Rose uses a viewing screen to show Zircon Tower City is under attack by Veracnus' army. Zircon Tower City's defenders are no match for Veracnus' army except for Phanis. Veracnus and his wives, a mermaid, a harpy, and a dragon-like banshee appear and attempt to force Phanis to marry him. Phanis shoots him through the heart, but the mermaid heals him. The harpy becomes jealous and attempts to kill Phanis. Diablo takes offense to Vericnus, saying he is working for a demon lord. So his group, including Rose, teleport back in time to save Phanis. Diablo, Shira, Rem, and Rose battle the army, while Lumikina heals the injured with Horn assisting her. Diablo is enraged when he sees Vericnus flaunting his wives, as it reminds him of how he was unable to get a girlfriend in real life. He engages them and quickly kills the wives. Enraged, Vericnus attacks, but is no match. Diablo kills him while declaring himself the true demon lord. With the battle won, Phanis holds a feast in celebration. On the way to the feast, Horn is intercepted by bullies who beat her up and ridicule her and her friends, saying they don't believe Diablo actually saved the city. Diablo rescues her and beats up the bullies. As he carries the injured Horn, she laments that she is so weak, but he says that is okay and she can stay with his group. Phanis attempts to seduce Diablo, so he will stay with her, but is rejected. Lumikina decides to go to the royal capital to root out the corruption of the church, but first the group returns to Faltra City. While Lumikina visits the city's church, Diablo and Rose learn Edelgard works at a bakery with Clem and Celestine as the usual customers. Clem warns Diablo that she senses something powerful in the royal capital. A criminal organization led by the Mismos family has been pressuring the bakery owner to pay protection money. When some Mismos enforcers come and ruin Clem's meal of biscuits, she beats them up and leads Edelgard, Diablo, and Rose in storming the Mismos mansion. But Diablo has to remind the others not to kill anybody. After taking out all the guards, they confront the boss and decide to intimidate him into doing good deeds to atone for his crimes. As everyone regroups and has dinner, Chester Ray Galford appears and says their actions were witnessed, and Clem is accused of being a demon lord and must be destroyed. Fortunately, the bakery owner and several others appear and thank Clem for stopping the Mismos, and say the Mismos have been making amends for the people they hurt. Chester concludes anyone who could inspire such goodwill couldn't be a demon lord. The next day, the group leaves Clem and Edelgard again and travels to the royal capital. Meanwhile, the head cardinal learns Lumikina is coming and says he will be ready for her. The group arrives at the royal capital, Sevenwall, and are accosted by guards, but Alicia Christello arrives and dismisses the guards, then lets them into an inn she owns. Rose becomes jealous, but relents when Alicia says she would willingly die for Diablo. As they eat, Horn says she wants to be stronger. Rose presents a slave collar and says if Horn wears it and makes a master-servant contract with Diablo, his power will flow into her. But Rem and Shira warn that if Diablo dies, she will die, plus other demerits of wearing a collar, so she refuses. After explaining to Alicia what is going on, she agrees to investigate the head cardinal, Vishos, but warns that the law cannot touch the church. That night, Rose asks Diablo to recharge her magical energy, and he is embarrassed when this involves touching her intimately. The next day, Alicia presents evidence that Vishos and his followers have embezzled funds from the church and have murdered several people. Alicia wants Diablo to destroy the church, but Lumikina insists on presenting the evidence so she can excommunicate Vishos and his followers. The group bids Alicia goodbye and goes to the city's holy ground, finding a ground-based church and a massive floating church in the sky. When Vishos appears, Lumikina denounces his crimes and orders him excommunicated, but he counters by accusing her of lying and of neglecting her duties and orders the group seized. His guards and the worshippers believe him and attack the group. Horn gives in to fear, manages to escape, and runs away. Lumikina asks the group not to fight as blood cannot be spilled on holy ground. So they surrender and are transported via a levitating platform to the floating church. Lumikina is separated from the others and sentenced to execution. Diablo orders the others not to escape because Lumikina asked them not to. Horn inadvertently activates a holy grail she took from Diablo's dungeon, and a tiny fairy-like girl named Babylon appears. She explains she appears to those who offer blood to the grail, and an embarrassed Horn remembers urinating in it and decides not to tell her. Babylon offers to make Horn stronger, but her spell doesn't work. With little options, Horn puts on the collar. Babylon helps instruct her on her new powers, like bewitching men to fall in love with her as they infiltrate the floating church. Just as she reaches the group's cell, a paladin attacks and injures her. Enraged, Diablo breaks down the door. Horn is disappointed that they could have escaped on their own, and so she tied her life to Diablo's for nothing. But Diablo thanks her for snapping him out of his foolishness in obeying La Machina, as he is a demon lord and obeys no one. He gives Horn a healing potion, then defeats the paladin after a little difficulty. Diablo flies outside and bombards the church with lightning while demanding La Machina. When she is presented by guards, he sentences the worshippers to death, his plan being that La Machina will rebuke him to save them, and then he will pretend to fall to make La Machina a hero. His plan goes awry when La Machina agrees with God to smite everyone, believing the worthy will go to heaven. Suddenly, Vishos unleashes a giant monster called Europa. Vishos merges with Europa and boasts that he is a god, then starts smashing the church while trying to kill La Machina. Diablo learns he is protected by a force field, so he asks La Machina to cast a spell to destroy the force field, but must protect her as it takes a long time to cast. Rose tries to help, but Vishos destroys her arm. La Machina casts the spell, but Vishos resists it until the worshippers pray for her, empowering her and allowing the spell to work. With the force field gone, Diablo easily vaporizes Europa and Vishos, but to his chagrin, the worshippers start calling him God. Rem investigates the inside of the church and discovers that Gewalt, out of gratitude for La Machina healing him, has resigned from the paladins and killed Vishos' guards, then presents the key to the cell of La Machina's friend Tria so they can free her. La Machina decides to stay and repair both the church and its reputation, aware she must also investigate Vishos' connections. Diablo finally convinces La Machina that he is not God, but she is grateful for his help nonetheless. Horn and Babylon decide to stay in Sevenwall so Horn can study magic, and Alicia takes them in. Rose is repaired, and the group returns to Faltra. When Fanis learns what Diablo has done, she decides to visit Faltra to try to seduce him again. Shara brings up the ring she took from Diablo's dungeon, and he is embarrassed when Rose points out it signifies marriage. Rem becomes jealous, so he says they will go on a quest to find another ring for her.